Hi, everybody. Welcome to another creative writing webinar. Today, we're going to be talking about observation and description, two very important skills for every writer to have. Let's see who we have here in the webinar today. People are coming in. I see AG, April, Cora, Ethan, Evelyn, Fallon, Isis, Kiara, Layla, Lorna, Mackenzie, Milo, Oliver, Olivia, Ronbeer, Shanna, and Simon. Hey guys, I see a lot of familiar names there, but I also see a couple of new ones, so welcome. And welcome to everybody. Caleb, I see a few more people popping in right now, so I think more people will be coming into the webinar as we get started here. And hi to everyone saying hello in the Q&A box. Good to see you guys again. What am I dressed up as? Nothing today. We don't have Spirit Week this week. This is just a normal week, so I'm just wearing a normal polo shirt here. But hi everyone. Looks like more people are still coming in, so we'll try not to get too started yet, just because then people ask, what are we talking about? But yeah. Okay, so observation and description. Yeah, we still have a few more people coming in, but I think we can jump into it. All right, here we go. Okay, so today we're actually going to start with an activity. Usually we talk for a little bit first and then we do an activity, but today I thought, let's start with an activity. Let's mix it up a little bit. So here is what I want you to do. Look at this picture and describe it in the Q&A box. Before we do anything else, I just want you to look at this picture and tell me about it. In a few sentences or paragraph, just describe what you see here. The Q&A box, of course, is always at the bottom of your screen. It is that box where you can type things in. So go ahead if you want to, and just tell me what you see here. This is an actual location in Oregon that you can travel to if you are at the Delphian school, such as we are. This is one of the actually most popular tourist attractions within a drive of the school. So I thought it'd be fun to put this up here. I'll tell you more about this place in a little bit. But before I tell you anything else about it, just go ahead, look at this picture and describe it in the Q&A box. And as soon as some of you guys have described it, I will read your answers out. Lorna has already actually correctly identified this location. Lorna says, is that Multnomah Falls? Yes, it is. This is Multnomah Falls. This is east of Portland, Oregon. It's a really beautiful location. All right, so Mackenzie says, a big waterfall, a bridge, and it's called Multnomah Falls. Very good. Milo says, green hills with a bridge spanning over a waterfall, cascading down the Green Mountain. Very nice, Milo. Good job. Anybody else want to jump in there with a description? You can describe it in one sentence if you'd like to, or a few sentences, or a whole paragraph if you have that much description for it. Mackenzie says that they've been there before. Yeah, it's an awesome place. Yeah, if there's anybody that's been to Oregon or lives in Oregon, I thought you might recognize it. Again, it's a pretty popular tourist location. Evelyn says, I saw two green hills, and in between them, there was a waterfall. Over the waterfall, there was a pretty bridge. Very nice. AG says, a bridge right above a thundering waterfall, sandwiched between two lush green cliffs. Very nice, AG. April says, a bunch of trees and a bridge and waterfall, which is a bunch of nature. Yeah, it is a bunch of nature. Katya says, the grass is greener than before. The water is rushing down the stream, and the brick bridge is holding up over the water and ground. Yeah, very nice. Lila says, the trees were a vivid green, the waterfall cascading down over the bridge. Very nice. Mackenzie recommends, if you haven't been here, Mackenzie says you should definitely go. I agree. It's a really nice spot to visit. Lorna says, a pleasant misty breeze washing over your face, a lovely view, the sound of water rushing underneath. Very nice, Lorna. All right, good. So you guys can keep on describing that in the Q&A box. We're going to move on to the next slide here. So today we are discussing observation and description. Most of the best writing you have experienced as a reader is descriptive. That means it describes things in the story well. In order to describe something well, you have to first be able to observe it. Observation is the ability to look at something carefully and closely. It could include the idea of seeing what is special or different about something compared to other things. So sometimes when you're describing things in a story or a book, you're describing something that everybody is familiar with, and you could think to yourself, there's no reason to get very descriptive about this thing because everybody knows what that thing looks like. For example, if you say that a person walks into a McDonald's restaurant, many of us have been to McDonald's before, or we've seen what they look like, and you could leave it at just like that in a story that you're writing. The man walked into the McDonald's. But a lot of writers will try to observe something closely and see if they can spot what is different or special about something to put that description, put that observation into writing. And there's probably a few different reasons that a writer would do this. One is that a lot of writers will try to spot what is sort of extraordinary, even in an ordinary situation. If you look at something simple that you've seen a million times before, you might ask yourself, you might try to look closely and ask yourself, what have I never noticed about this thing that I'm observing? What is actually maybe a little bit different about this one to every other time I've seen this thing? The reason for possibly describing that is if you can describe something about a scene or a person or an object that maybe the reader's never noticed before, you can make that thing seem even more real or interesting to the person. You might be able to describe something that your reader has even noticed for themselves, but they've never really been able to put into words before. Maybe, the person walking into a McDonald's restaurant, maybe you're able to describe something about how it sounds in a McDonald's that the person has never noticed before. Maybe at most McDonald's, I think at all McDonald's locations today, they don't actually grill or fry the burgers. They kind of warm the burger patties up. So maybe when you have your person walk into the McDonald's, they realize that they don't hear anything, they don't hear any sizzle, they don't hear anything grilling. There's just sort of a dull hum coming from the space behind the counter. Maybe the person, as they're ordering, they realize they miss the sound of grilling meat for hamburgers. Maybe by observing something like that and then describing it to your reader, you make your reader go, oh yeah, I never have heard anything sizzling on I've never heard a burger sizzle behind a McDonald's counter before. Maybe you can make them think about something they've never thought about while reading your story. When you are able to observe things closely like this and describe them to the reader, you can sort of open up more for the reader. You make the experience of reading your writing become something that's deeper and has more dimension than just saying a man walked into a McDonald's. You might say, well, what's even the point of describing that at that point? Again, another one of the most basic rules of writing, I think we've discussed in a previous webinar before. I don't remember if we have or not. But one of the best rules I ever read was leave out all the boring stuff. But if your story, you do need to describe that somebody's like going somewhere, and it might be kind of boring to describe that, like the guy went to a restaurant and he ate. Maybe you need that in your story, but it sounds kind of boring to describe it that way. Well, what can you observe and what can you describe in that scene that could make something boring actually really interesting and maybe, open something up for the reader that they wouldn't expect in an otherwise boring scene. All right, so good writers develop their ability to observe things around them in order to make creative, detailed descriptions of things for the reader. So you could describe this scene by saying there is a bridge over a waterfall. That would be accurate. That would be totally fine. It's totally okay to write that in a story or a book or whatever. But can you observe it more closely to describe it in greater detail? So just looking at this picture again, so we took a first attempt at this, we described it, and you guys did a great job describing it. Several of you used fun descriptive words to describe the water rushing by below, or what the greenery, all these plants and everything. But maybe we could look one more time. So let's observe closely. Let's look at this picture and let's try to figure out what is maybe special or different about this picture. The first time I looked at this picture when I was putting this slideshow together, I see the waterfall, I see all the trees and the bridge. But the second time I looked at it, I looked a little bit closer and I noticed there's actually a lot of people on that bridge. The first time I was looking at it, I forgot to look for the people, but there's a couple people over on the right side of the bridge. There's a couple people on the left. If I look very closely, I think there's a person in the middle taking a picture of somebody kind of silhouetted against the water. That's a really common thing if you've been to this location. People are always taking pictures up there. But what else can we observe about this picture? You'll notice that there are trees up on top of both sides of this bridge. But the second time I look at it, I notice how many plants are growing like directly sideways out of the side of the cliff here. There's like a lot of moss and ferns and things, growing sideways. That's interesting. I don't know, maybe that could be something that we could describe, this is really high up in the air where this bridge is. And these people are walking over this little bridge with water rushing below them when they're really high up in the air, and all around them are plants literally growing sideways out of the cliff beside this water. Maybe that's something that we could describe. Maybe highlighting the danger of being high up in the air. Maybe we can make this, it's a little bit interesting. It's kind of pretty, but what about it could be extraordinary? What about it could be really different and interesting that we could describe to the reader? If anybody wants to take a second shot at describing the scene, go for it. Yeah, April says, OMG, there is a human in that picture on the bridge. All right, I'm going to read some more of your guys' descriptions here. Fallon says, a waterfall cascading down the side of a sheer cliff. Moss grows on the bare rock, and at the bottom of the fall is a small lake which flows into another waterfall. Hills surround it, growing into a basin as to hold the small lake. A bridge goes over the lower fall, wooden and majestic. Trees grow on either side, a lush green, plants surrounding them. It is gorgeous. That's a really nice description, Fallon. Well done. Isis says, it looked like two giant moss-eaten rocks. A waterfall laughs, roars, and cascades between them. An ancient-looking bridge connects them, like friendship connects people. A million shades of green surround what you see, blinding you with beauty. That is really nice, Isis. I like that little metaphor you made there, or that simile. The bridge connects the hills like friendship connects people. That's a really fun description. Well done. Ethan says, the waterfall was raging loudly. There were green rolling hills and the trees were lively. A bridge attached the two hills like the glue holding two objects together. Everything was green, the rolling hills, the tall trees, even the bridge had dark green ivy. The only things that weren't green were the large rocks and the people who crossed the bridge. The only sounds that could be heard over the rushing of the waterfall were the tweeting and cooing of the birds. It was a paradise. You guys amaze me with your descriptive writing sometimes. Can I just say for a second? I love the way you guys describe things. You're doing a great job. And I think Ethan did something really awesome there, is that when I look through this picture, I don't think I see any birds, but I think that if I was there, I probably would, or I would definitely hear them. So sometimes when you're describing a scene, it's totally okay to use your imagination too. You're writers, we're creating worlds here, right? So Ethan, even though I don't think we see any birds here, he's imagining that there are birds there, and he took the time to describe them. I think that's really awesome. Katja says, the people are gazing down at the pretty waterfalls with plants growing directly to the side of the cliff. The bridge holds up the people that are still gazing and taking pictures of the pretty water. Very nice, Katja. All right, good job, everyone. All right, so activity 2. That last one was kind of activity 1B, I guess. So here's activity 2. Observe this painting of a pirate battle. I thought we'd go from a pretty waterfall picture to now we're in a pirate ship with a water, you know, and swords and a battle. So I thought this would be a fun changing the pace up. Okay, so I want you to observe this painting of a pirate battle. In the Q&A box, describe it in detail. So again, we're going to try to take the time to observe this picture closely. What can we see that maybe stands out? What is interesting about it? And it's totally okay to describe the most obvious things. You know, in the middle of the picture, there's this red-coated pirate with his braided beard, and he's got this sword, and he's wrestling with this guy who's got a pistol. And that's awesome. But also, what else can we notice in the scene? My eye travels to some of the other details in the picture. You know, everything that's in this picture, this is a painted picture, so everything that's in this picture, an artist, a painter, specifically put it there. Somebody had to take the time to paint every little detail. So everything in this picture was a choice. Everything is there to probably communicate something. So it's really interesting to look around and see what other little, there's like the big story. There's the big story in the middle of the picture, but there's also little stories going on all around it if you take the time to look for them. On the right side of the picture, you'll notice that there's a big black pirate flag with skull and crossbones. And it appears to me, as far as I can tell, that flag is actually on the other ship. It looks like, you know, if I'm seeing this correctly, that there's like a, you know, there's like a flagpole, you know, with the pirate flag, but it looks like it's over on the other ship on the right side. So this ship that they're on right here, I think is probably, you know, these guys are British or French or something, but I think this is, you know, the ship that's being boarded. I think the pirates have jumped onto this ship. This isn't the pirate ship. This is, you know, whoever the pirates are attacking. So that's interesting. I also notice, you know, there's like a broken sword. There's a broken bottle right beneath these, the two main guys. Over on the left side, there's two guys wrestling, and it looks like the pirate on the bottom, you know, his eyes are bugged out. He's losing this wrestling match over here on the left. There's a pirate over here on the right. He's got a pistol, but there's a guy coming up behind him with like a knife on the, like a bayonet knife on the end of his gun. So there's lots of little interesting scenes going on here. And sometimes when you're describing a scene to your reader, in addition to describing the main thing going on, it can be really interesting for the reader to describe some of the little side things. You can kind of, you know, paint, quote unquote, a picture for your reader by, you know, calling out some of the little details in addition to the main thing. So you could describe the main battle here, but what other little things would you want to describe? Also, in addition to just describing what we see, you can use your other senses as well. You can try to imagine to yourself, what would it sound like to be in the middle of this pirate battle? I'm sure we would hear yells and shouts and grunts and cries of pain and triumph. I think we would smell the salt water and the smell of burning gunpowder, and maybe some of the barrels of rum and gunpowder have tipped over. So maybe we smell those things. What do we feel? These guys wrestling and fighting on the deck. Maybe we describe the rough feel of the wood, or, you know, the deck is slippery with salt water. So we can use all of our senses here. Kind of like, I think it was Ethan in the last one. He described birds cooing and calling, even though we didn't see them. Here, you can use your imagination. You could describe things in the scene that we don't even see here. Maybe you hear, you know, the boom of cannon and, other, you can pull more things into your description. All right, I see the Q&A box. Things are appearing. So let's see what we're describing so far. So Lorna says, water sprayed everything, soaking everyone. What started this brawl, you ask? Oh, I'm sorry. She says that was not ready. I think she hit enter too soon. She has a great first sentence or two there. Katja says, there is a bad pirate fighting a good person, going back and forth on who is winning the battle while getting soaked on the boat because of the storming waves. The waves don't like them fighting, and that is why it's so stormy. I guess it wishes the fight would end. Well, that's fun. I like that you're making the ocean a character here. You're kind of making the elements come alive. That could be figurative, like maybe we're pretending that the ocean is alive, or maybe in this story, maybe this is more of like a fantasy story and the ocean really is alive. The ocean's like a character too. Evelyn says, the men were wearing old-fashioned clothing. There were waves soaking the men with seawater and broken glass all around. Very nice. Oh, here's the rest of Lorna's description. Water sprayed everywhere, soaking everyone. What started this brawl, you ask? Well, it is a long story, so I will cut it short, give you an abridged version. Basically, the pirates boarded the ship of smugglers. Back to the present. The battle was fierce. Very nice, Lorna. Mackenzie says, and the captain pirate lashes his sword. Men fall down dead. They race around. The pirates are winning. Yells are to be heard. Cannons blast and it sinks. Very nice. AG says, the captains of the two ships fought with short swords. At scraps of cloth and puddles of blood lay at their feet. Other pirates fought around them. Some others lay injured or dead on the wooden floor. Broken swords flew in every direction. Gunshots rang through the salty air. Very nice, AG. Lila says, the men were aggressive. Bodies, guns, and bottles lay astrewn. The sea is fighting the boat, similar to the men. I hear the shouts and battle cries of men. I feel the red-hot fury as they slash and wrestle each other for control. That's really great, Lila. I like that you're putting the fury, the anger into the fight there. April says, wait, what if the pirates are nice and the other people are mean? You could definitely write that. Yeah, get to it, April. You got to describe that scene. Now I really want to hear it. Isis says the sky was gray. The ocean was battling the ship that held men who battled themselves. British versus pirate, men versus savages, or so we think. Knives and cloth was scattered on the ship's floor. The smell in the air was sickening. Men were strangling each other on the slippery floor. It was a bloody battle. Shouting, crying, roaring pain. You could hear it all in one time. Very good, Isis. You guys are doing a great job describing this chaotic scene. Ethan says, there was a wave crashing over the ship like a pencil falling off a table. There was death covering the ship like paint covers a picture. The wind was howling and men were yelling and grunting. Gunpowder and salty waves filled the air. The pirate's flag was nearly torn, bellowing in the wind. There were ships crossing the ocean and the sails were red with blood. Gold and treasure was scattered across the floor. Very nice, Ethan. Very descriptive. Mackenzie, I don't know if this is from a movie. I think this is just a painting, an old painting. I don't know if it's like a historical thing, or it might just be a picture that somebody just painted for fun. Haley says, there is a never-ending battle between two ships with lots of ugly deaths. Guns and pistols were shooting every way, every step you take, with the salt water crashing on the boats, moving them side to side, throwing the pirates off balance. Fallon says, waves crash against the deck, splashing combatants, both the fallen and the living alike. It shows no mercy as it drenches the pirates aboard. A pirate captain barely dodges a bullet as he tries to prevent his attacker from shooting him. He wields his sword towards him. Bottles shatter and crash. A homemade bomb gets thrown to the ground, put out by the spray. Men battle all across the deck, swords clashing and guns firing. Ships sail in the distance, nearing the pirate ship, firing their cannons. Another ship by the pirate ship, that is where the attackers came from to board. Storm clouds rage overhead, crying for the fallen. Then the sea crashed over my head as it pulled me overboard. I scream, water filling my lungs as I sink towards the watery depths. What will happen to my captain? To me? We may never know. Excellent job, Fallon. I feel like we're there. Very good job. All right, let's move on. So many writers practice people watching to improve their ability to observe and describe. They look at real life people and think of ways they would describe them in writing. So people watching, this is something that you can do, just walking around town. You can do this just even with a family member. You can watch somebody else doing something and try to think of ways that you would describe it. Or you could have a notebook and you could actually work on describing the person that you see. It's a really important skill in writing a story with multiple characters or even just with one character. But you have to be able to make your characters feel like real people. There are hundreds of things that we notice about people that we probably never think about that we're noticing. If you ask yourself, when I recognize a friend on the street, what is it about that person that my eye in my mind, observe that makes them different from everybody else? When you see your friend that has red hair, but that's your friend, not somebody else, what is it that's different about those people? There's a bunch of things that you're probably observing about them that you've never thought about before. Some of those things might be the way that their hair curls, or does that person wear glasses or not? It could be sort of the build of that person's body, the type of clothing that they wear, or even the way that they carry themselves, which means how does that person walk? Does the person have a confident walk? Do they walk with their chest out and their shoulders, back? Or does the person always seem like they're hunched over? Does the person look around with open eyes, or do they always seem like they're frowning and looking around like they're hiding? There's probably things about people that you observe like this all the time that you've just never taken the time or had any reason to put into words. But as a writer, that's your job. You're going to have to put things into words to paint a picture of a person, because there are a lot of books, not great written books, that they give characters names, but they never do a very good job to actually make that person feel real and distinct from other characters. Distinct means, what is it about that person that makes them an individual? What makes that person different from other people? We are all individuals, but what is special about that person? What is it that, like we talked about with like a restaurant, what could you describe about that person that could make them interesting and different, even if that person, you might say, looks kind of like everybody else? You might see a stranger on a street. You might see a man with gray hair, an older gentleman walking down the street, and just think to yourself, in your mind, you're like, that's a stranger. I don't know that person. There's an old man walking by. But as a writer, it's kind of your responsibility to describe that person in such a way that they are an individual, that they're unique, they're different. So you have to take a moment, and this is an exercise you can do in real life, to just mentally almost like go down a checklist and ask yourself, what is different about this gentleman from every other one that I've seen? Maybe the way they walk is a little bit different. Maybe the way that they style their hair is a little bit different. Maybe the clothes that they wear are a little bit different. Maybe the way they sound is a little bit different. Maybe this person has a funny way of breathing, or maybe they, this person walking by, they have a giant ruby ring on their hand, where most, older gentlemen you see don't wear giant rings. As a writer, you can invent some of these characteristics. As you're writing a story, you could pick a few things and add them to the person to make them stand out. But some of the best ones come from real life, real observation of people. And if you can really paint this picture in a story you write or a book you write, your characters will feel like real, distinct people. Just because it's a book series that a lot of us have read, I always think back to Harry Potter. The Harry Potter books do a very good job of describing characters and making them look and feel like individuals. J.K. Rowling, the author of the Harry Potter books, was very good at describing characters briefly, but making them memorable. Harry's aunt and uncle and his cousin all get a little bit of description right at the beginning of the book. And I feel like we could all distinctly see those characters in our minds, and those pictures always stuck with us. The way that his aunt is described as like very skinny, and she looks very severe. She looks very kind of like she's a harsh, maybe mean person. And his uncle's a very big man with lots of like extra, rolls to his chin, and his face is always red because he gets, angry all the time. Even before the movies ever came out, or we saw illustrated versions of these stories, we all had pretty good pictures of what the people looked like. You wouldn't confuse Harry's uncle for one of his professors if the name was just brought up, because most of these characters had really good, distinct pictures in our minds. So for our next activity here, we're going to change it up from that pirate picture, and I'm going to show you a picture of two actually kind of quote unquote normal looking people. I think this one is going to be, even seen as this picture is kind of normal, this is going to be the biggest challenge out of the three activities here. So activity 3, you might see two people sitting on benches while walking through a park. What can you observe and describe about these two women? So we don't have a giant pirate battle here to describe. There's no broken bottles. There are no cannons. There's no pirate flag. There's no pistol. There's no wrestling match with waves crashing over the deck of a ship. There's just two women sitting on benches in a park next to a tree. But this might be in your story. This might be a key scene. This might be a very important thing that you need to communicate about for your writing. So how do we take this kind of normal scene and actually make these characters here seem memorable to our readers? So I want you to just try to describe this scene by look at these two women, but look at them closely. Try to spot what is different about them from each other, or maybe from other people. What is maybe, special, or what's something that you can call out? Instead of just saying the woman had brown hair, which the woman on the left does, but what else about her could we maybe describe that would make her different from other brown-haired women? The woman on the right side, what could we describe about her that would make her sound a little bit different or memorable in the reader's mind? And I told you, I think this is going to be a bit challenging because these are two very just normal-looking people. But if you can find a way to describe them that makes them sound special or different or unique in the reader's mind, you're going to be a long way towards being a good descriptive writer. So I think this will be good practice for everybody. All right, let's see what we are getting in the Q&A box. See if we have any descriptions so far. There's a book recommendation here. Ethan says that I should read The Land of Stories. I've heard of those books. I haven't read any yet, but one of my students during the school year was reading those books and said they're really good. So I think I'm going to check them out. That's now 2 recommendations to read The Land of Stories. All right, so Caleb says, they are sitting in the park smiling and talking with nature all around them. Okay, good. That's a good starting description there, Caleb. Caleb, though, I would challenge you to, how can we describe these two talking, sitting, smiling women and make them sound different, not only from each other, but from all other talking, sitting, smiling women. And I know this is a challenge, but how can you paint a picture in the reader's mind, in my mind and everybody else's? If we couldn't see this picture in front of us, how could you describe it in such a way that these women, the picture pops into our head, that we see something and we are going to see that character, and the next time they're described, we remember what this woman looks like, different from other people. Let's see. Mackenzie says, one girl has white hair, one black. One has jeans, not the other. One girl is a little bit bigger, the other is skinny. Okay, good. Those are good descriptions. Mackenzie also describes one is kind of older, the other is younger. Let's see, Katja says, the woman on the right has brown hair, skinny and wearing a polka dot dress. The woman on the left has blonde hair. She is wearing jeans and a flannel shirt. I notice that they both are smiling and looking at each other. The scene is the birds are chirping, the trees swaying in the wind, and the two women are sitting on different benches. Okay, good. Those are all good descriptions. Katja says, I meant stripes. Yeah, so don't get discouraged if you do find this a bit challenging. There's no trick question here. There's no secret thing I'm waiting for you to describe. There's no hidden thing in this picture that I'm waiting for somebody to mention. There's nothing like that. What I meant by that this picture could be a bit challenging is that it is so normal. There isn't anything secret or hidden or you know, we're not hiding anything in this picture that we're looking for. What's challenging about it is that this scene, if I was writing these two women sitting on benches and I was writing it in a book, there's the danger of it being very boring because it's just two people sitting on benches. The challenge, the fun part, what can really make something like this fun for a writer is how do you describe the scene and not make it boring? How can you take something as simple as two women sitting on benches and try to raise it up, to elevate it to really fun, interesting descriptions in a story or a book? You know, even if we don't, you know, find a way to make it not boring today, it's something to practice. This is something that I recommend you do in your real life. If you're walking through a park and you saw the scene, you could try to find ways to describe it to yourself. Now, I'll give you a little bit of added advice here. It's okay to make guesses. It's okay to kind of add on your own meaning and your own backstory to these people. Because as a writer, that's what you get to do for your own writing. You get to create the history and story of these people. You get to describe in your own mind what's going on. So it would be okay to look at these two people and just use your imagination and say, what's going on here? Why are these two women talking to each other? Why do they find themselves sitting on these benches today having this meeting, or did they just bump into each other? Are they strangers, or do they know each other? Is one woman the mother of the other? Do these people like each other, or do they secretly not like each other? What can we get from looking at this? What could we describe to the reader to add to this scene? You know, how can we elevate it? And that means how can we raise it up from just saying two women are sitting on benches and make it something more interesting, more fascinating to the reader to read and listen to? Let's see what else we have. Evelyn says, two women were sitting on two different park benches practicing social distancing. Yeah, I guess they are. One of them was wearing a nice dress and had a fancy purse. The other woman had jeans and an old sweater, and her purse was a plain canvas bag. That's really good, Evelyn. I like that the thing that you decided to pick out was sort of how fancy or expensive, like what they're wearing and carrying with them is. You're kind of communicating something to the reader about maybe what kind of jobs they have or what sort of social status or how much wealth they have. And you're not being really heavy about it. You're being very light about it. By saying that one has a plain canvas bag and the other has a fancy purse, you're telling the reader something without actually, spelling it out. That's a good description. Let's see. AG says, a huge thick tree sat right behind the two chatting women on two different benches. The one on the left had a white purse and white, pristine shoes. They looked very expensive, as well as her black and white striped shirt. Her sunglasses blended in with her long, dark brown hair. The other woman looked older, with a white coat, blue jeans, and plain white shoes. In contrast to the other woman, her sunglasses stood out against her short, light blonde hair. That's a really good description, AG. Yeah, we're finding what's different about these two people, or what's similar, what's different. I like that you point out that their sunglasses stand out on one woman's hair, but not on the others. That's a fun little detail. I liked how you said that her shoes are pristine. That means her shoes aren't dirty at all. They're very clean. This woman's out walking in a park, but her shoes are perfectly clean. That kind of communicates maybe she's very careful. Maybe the shoes are new. Why are they so clean if she's out walking? All right, Milo says, one of them had blonde hair and she looked strong, but in her late 60s. And she is wearing blue, worn jeans and wearing a rose gold watch. And the other lady looked well paid and has brown hair and is wearing a white striped shirt. And they were having an intense staring contest. That's a really good point, Milo. Yeah, neither one of them are actually saying anything. Neither one of them have their mouths open. They're just both actually staring at each other. Does anybody else get the sense that these two people don't actually like each other very much? I might be assuming that, but they do kind of look aggressive. They're both smiling, but they're looking at each other very aggressively, if you ask me. All right, Fallon says, as I'm sitting on one of the benches in the park and taking in the beauty and freshness of nature, I see two women sitting across from me. They are both sitting on benches like myself. The one on the left has short blonde hair. She is wearing a white shirt with print on it and a striped jacket. She's wearing blue jeans and has a white canvas bag next to her. She is older than the woman on the right. As she notices me observing her, she smiles a warm smile at me. I wave and she waves back. Then I look towards the other woman. She has shoulder-length brown hair with shades on her head. She's wearing a striped 3/4 sleeve dress. Her legs are crossed and she's wearing white shoes. Over her shoulder, there drapes a small white purse. It looks expensive. She has brown eyes, and although she isn't wearing makeup, she is quite pretty. She meets my eyes and looks away. I knew then that I'd been caught staring and decided to read my book. I wonder who they are. Do they know each other? Do they have family? I wonder. Fallon, that sounds like it's straight out of a book, Fallon. Really good job. Lots of little details mentioned. I feel like these people already have a character. When you describe one of them, that she smiles warmly. The other one, when she looks at you, she doesn't smile. You're already giving these people a character. You're giving them a personality and just a little bit of description. It's really nice. April says, there is something weird about the picture. I think we have time to read just a few more. Haley says, a young lady and an old lady were best friends for a long time. Today they're taking a walk through the park. It was very hot outside, but the young lady didn't think so. But the old lady did. They sat on two separate benches near a shady tree anyway, talking about their outfits. Very nice. Good. All right. Yeah, now a few people are chipping in here. Shanna says, I don't think they like each other. Isis, yes, they look quietly angry. Yeah, good job, guys. Liza says, 2 women sitting on benches talking. The woman on the left has brown hair, a striped dress, white shoes, and a purse. The woman on the right has blonde hair, jeans, and maybe is in her 50s. They both have sunglasses, and they are probably frenemies. Friend/enemies. Very nice. All right, you guys did a great job. I think you actually did very good with that challenge. You know, this is the toughest part here. Looking at normal situations and trying to pull things out of it to make a normal, to make an ordinary scene extraordinary. That's what the best writers do. That's what we should all be attempting to do. We can have fun with the big, loud pirate scenes, and those might be a bit easier. But can we also be observant and descriptive in the quiet moments? That's good. What I think can really make our writing extraordinary. All right. Thank you guys for watching today. As always, keep on practicing, keep on writing. We have our 200th webinar is tomorrow. I think I have the honor of teaching the 200th webinar, and it's going to be a fun one. We're going to be talking about National Novel Writing Month. It's a great activity that you can get involved in. I have found it very useful. I hope you guys will too. I hope you all tune in tomorrow at 2:30 to learn all about it if you don't already know about it. Yeah, I'll see you guys all tomorrow. Thanks for watching today.